just look at what September's been for the entire history of Bitcoin. 5 years in a row, it's been a red month. Would this month be any different?
Hello folks, and welcome back to another edition of the Crypto Byte here on Market Rebellion YouTube. I'm joined with Monte, and if you like the content today, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Market Rebellion YouTube channel, where we have new content every day, as well as new crypto content every few weeks here on the Crypto Byte. If you've watched some of our last shows, you'll know that Monte and I have kind of had a general bearish outlook from a macro perspective, despite the fact that there's been a really interesting increase in the S&P 500. Now we're starting to see the downside of that. And, generally our plan has been just to kind of wait and to look at Bitcoin at levels such as 14, 15,000 before we kind of consider bidding. Of course, that could change if, inflation expectations loosen up a bit. But overall, I still think we have macro factors, specifically DXY going for that 120 target, as well as the TNX going towards 390. So with that kind of being our view, we want to talk about the assets and actionable ideas that we're going to take in the next coming weeks. Monte, you want to talk a lot about Bitcoin-related equities. I think that's a pretty good place to start, so have at it.
Thank you, CJ. Yeah, crypto-related equities. Let's start there, because when we're talking crypto, there's such a long bias, and we talked about this on another episode of the Crypto Byte. But when you're looking at something like Coinbase, really your only options are buy or sell. There's no way to really take advantage of the downside, and that's true for other platforms for buying crypto. So if you're a retail trader, for the most part, you're only really trying to play the upside, and that's already putting you at a disadvantage. But the crypto-related equities are a great way to get exposure to the downside, especially right now, because I think that not only are we eyeing lower levels for Bitcoin, but the headwinds that define the valuations of these crypto-related equities, specifically the miners with companies like Marathon and Riot. I mean, energy costs have been rising. It's been all over the news. It's been one of the biggest concerns from here and in Europe, and that is a huge factor in the profitability of these miners. And if you look at them, CJ, they've really moved alongside the S&P more so than Bitcoin has. They're well off their bottoms. And because of that, I think that there is some pretty significant opportunity to the downside. So those are two stocks in particular, Mara, Riot. I'm going to be looking to play the end of month options, and I'm looking for a retest of the lows. And let me give you two reasons why. One, depreciating Bitcoin. When we talk about the miners, they need Bitcoin to continue to appreciate in value for them to remain profitable. That's how they generate revenue, by selling the Bitcoin that they mine. And then rising energy costs. The fact that basically globally we're going through almost an energy crisis and there's really no end in sight to the war in Europe, that is putting tremendous pressure on these mining companies and the Bitcoin hash rate in general. So I think all of those headwinds are painting a picture to the downside for the crypto-related equities, specifically the miners, because of that energy use case. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to the downside here in the coming weeks to months. And one thing that we've talked about, CJ, September, historically a very, very bad month for Bitcoin, the worst month for Bitcoin historically. And today is, the start of that month. So going to be watching the miners closely for those reasons. But curious to hear your thoughts on that as well, if there's any other crypto-related equities that you're taking a look at.
Yeah, there definitely are, namely Silvergate. We'll get to that in a minute, but I do want to provide some context because we're like 70% down from the highs. So, while I am looking for bearish continuation to the downside, I'm not going after these trades tremendously aggressively in terms of the allocated capital. Me personally, I'm in 90% cash. 10% is either in cash or maybe a short speculative vehicle at any time. So I'm not really looking to short this market aggressively, but I still am looking to allocate to the downside. What I'm starting to get more excited about is the prospect of the market bottoming in the next year or perhaps early 2023, if that is something that is possible. That's where I want to start looking for longer term spot positions to accumulate. So, before we say we're super bearish, I just want to provide that context that, while I do think shorting and looking for negative continuation is a good thing, we're already 70% off the lows or off the highs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely, that should factor into your position sizing or your conviction at these levels. But just because of, the fundamental elements at play and the technical elements, right? We talk about these crypto-related equities as sort of a high beta vehicle of exposure to Bitcoin. And we've seen that in the last few weeks. Whereas Bitcoin is basically less than 10% off its lows at this point of 17.6K, the crypto-related equities, Mara, Riot, Silvergate, still significantly off the lows. And I expect if Bitcoin hits that critical 17.6 level, I expect we see a low in the equities as well. So I'm just trying to, play that discrepancy because I see it as an opportunity, really. So, that's just another kind of factor at play. It's not just the energy costs and depreciating Bitcoin. From a technical perspective as well, I think there is, some decent room to the downside, despite the fact that we're already 70% off our all-time highs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up into the final moments of this show, we want this to be one of the most actionable crypto podcasts on YouTube. So let's talk about trade ideas. You've already mentioned a little bit on Riot and Mara. I also like potential puts in Silvergate. What was interesting that we saw for Market Rebellion, unusual option activity this week is a lot of puts over the past 2 to 3 weeks being bought in BITO, basically a Bitcoin exposure vehicle. And so seeing larger players short that in the options market is always something interesting. Also, especially when it goes out into November and October. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. In terms of crypto plays, I think that Helium is a really interesting chart and what's been going on fundamentally with their network. It's been one of the most bearish assets in the crypto market. It's dangerous to short something with such heavily short interest. But if we are to see, that crash down to maybe 15K in Bitcoin or 14K, some of the weakest assets I'll be looking to short are Helium. And then Chiliz has recently had a really interesting run up off of some news, but I don't think that'll be able to be sustained if we fall further in Bitcoin. So basically, those are my ideas. Not going after these with a whole lot of capital since we already are, 70% from the highs. But that's basically what I'm looking to do. How about you?
Yeah, I'm in a similar position. As we're starting the month of September here, I'm looking to protect myself to the downside. Like I said, September has been by far the worst month for Bitcoin in its history. And just because of the way we're seeing the DXY break out, the market go risk off, S&P pull back after a couple weeks of positive price action, I think all of that's painting a very negative picture for September. So I'm looking out to end of month or even middle of month and looking at some put options, particularly around Mara and Riot. Look right towards the bottom of their range, right towards their lows. Like I said, if Bitcoin hits their lows, I expect those to make lows as well. And I think that presents some opportunity to play those options, around the 15th, around end of month. But like you said, CJ, also things like BITO, I think there's some opportunity there. And I think that more so than playing the perpetual futures this month, I'll be looking just to protect myself to the downside by buying some, put options that expire mid-month and end of month, particularly in some of these crypto-related equities that we spoke about today. So that's my plan. And, just look at what September's been for the entire history of Bitcoin. 5 years in a row, it's been a red month. Would this month be any different? Doesn't look like it to me.
Well, we have other setups, but we're not going to get to them in this episode. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in gold, in the FX market, as well as other particular altcoins. We talk a lot about those in the crypto room, and you can get access to that at marketrebellion.com/crypto today. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.